Welcome to the Bionicle Inspiration series. Today, let's talk about building some Bionicle Construction Overwatch characters, because that's what we do on the show. We take a look at mocks from across the community to inspire you. And today we've got a really cool collab from the spare parts community, and this is all hot off the press. This has just been posted. I teed it up with them, so as this comes out, more or less their stuff will come out too. So enjoy some freshly baked goodies. But yeah, so let's take a look at some of these awesome mocks from some of these really cool guys. Let's start off these Overwatch characters with a mock by Cinderblock, and this is Reinhardt. Really enjoyed the hammer design on this one. I think it's a great idea to use this Power Miner's wheel piece and put that at the end of the hammer there because, I don't know, it's a larger piece, so it's just a great way to kind of bulk that out. I mean, in the source material, it is a naturally very large hammer, but yeah, it also represents the source material well. It's a great way to recreate that shape there, so a good inclusion, that's for sure. And, you know, weapons are really important on any kind of character that you're building. I mean, the better you make the weapon look, the better the rest of the mock is going to look as well. So yeah, it's good that a lot of attention has been paid to this hammer here. Now, I also really like the system face design on Reinhardt here. It's really managed to capture the essence of the actual helmet design, but I think it's also nice to see some system elements being scattered on other places of the mock other than just on the head design here. You know, we can see it on, obviously, the head, like I said, the hands, the feet, and areas of the hammer. It's also on the chest as well, I suppose. It's all over the mock, but, you know, you can see it in some of those more prominent parts on each section of the mock. And I love that it's, you know, system pieces being used in multiple places. This way it's not feeling like there's just this weird out of place system head on a very Bionicle focused body design. It kind of ties everything together a little bit more and makes it look more consistent and coherent. And I think that's a really good thing to be doing. That way nothing looks out of place, you know? So yeah, great to see such an accurate helmet design and system scattered all throughout. It looks fantastic. Now over to Peter Shaker, who built Semestra. One of the first things that grabbed me when I saw this mock was the way that the dress had been built. You know, normally I like seeing cloth elements and stuff being used on mocks, but, you know, there's not actually a lot of yellow Lego cloth elements out there, you know, official ones at least. I'm sure you can make your own custom ones that work with Lego, but, you know, you don't always have to be using cloth for cloth elements on a mock. There's other alternatives, and I think this is a brilliant alternative for exactly that. So we can see this specific curved technique panel being used on the front here in yellow. I believe this only appeared in this specific set. And then on the back, we can see this yellow shield piece, which was used on the old yellow version of the Jettrax T6. So yeah, I feel like the natural curves of these pieces do kind of look like flowing cloth. And, you know, building it all around the rest of the mock and everything, it really does get the job done and sells that look that's in the original source material. So yeah, a brilliant choice of parts to recreate that there. It looks fantastic. I also love seeing the hair design here. Repeating a bunch of these clip pieces is not only a great way to make a ponytail design that, you know, kind of looks like it's been braided together and stuff, but also because those pieces, you know, just naturally work the way they do, you can also get a bit of posability out of that. So that's really cool to see. The face design's also quite nice here. I like the fact that it's using this Batarang piece for the eyes here. That's something about that works really well and kind of mimics some of the makeup on the eye that you see on the original character as well. So a great choice for an eye design there. And also nice to see other system pieces being used to recreate like the tiara and the other sort of face details and things that are, again, on the actual source material there. And I guess that's really just the way that you got to build something like this, is just play the game, study videos, images, and other, you know, material out there that depicts these characters, and just spend hours looking at it so that you really understand how everything looks, and just do your best to recreate that with those original pieces there. I think it's, you know, it's easier said than done to just study those images and try to recreate it in Lego, but often you're going to see something like that. You're like, oh, this piece kind of resembles the way that this sort of curves or whatever, and then you can get something cool. And you can certainly see that being done on this mock here. Well done. Brionicles has now built Junkrat. So of course out there's a lot of different eye pieces, whether that's the eyes that you get from different like creator or classic Lego sets, or you can also see them in like the brickheads and things like that. There's a lot of different, you know, 1x1 rounded tiles with printed patterns on them. So it's great to see two of them being used here for these eyes to mimic the source material, make it look like the facial expressions that this character often has. So that was a great choice of pieces there. But just on the subject of great choices of pieces, this whole face design looks fantastic. I love seeing this tan clip piece being used for the nose there, and then seeing this white curved plate on the bottom to represent the teeth. that looks fantastic. So yeah, all in all, the way the hair and everything else is done, it's a brilliant recreation of the face. This is also a very elegant way of building a mock with a bare chest. Very simple chest design using the tan armor shells there on the bottom, and then on the top there using the tan torso piece. Gets the job done. But I especially love the entire arm design here. Once again, using those same armor shell pieces in tan, but combining it with these 2x2 cone pieces. That looks awesome. These cone pieces came on like the recent Bowser set, and they've appeared on a few other different things in other colors, but Bowser, they specifically come in tan. And yeah, the textures of that perfectly match up with your typical CCBS armor textures. And it's a pretty cost-effective way of doing an arm design as well. It's only a couple different pieces there, but it really does look cool. And yeah, just that whole chest there in tan really does match the source material perfectly. I'm going to be saying matches the source material perfectly a lot in this episode, because they do. They've done a good job with that. So brace yourself. Anyway, all in all, I think they've perfectly nailed the look of Junkrat here and managed to capture an excellent amount of personality in this character build here. Really well done. Okay, up next we have a mock by EMS MOCs, and this is Reaper. I thoroughly enjoy how simple and effective the mask design on Reaper is here. You just need that G2 skull mask, and it looks close enough to the source material. Yeah, it's not an exact copy, but it may as well be. It's skull-like enough. It gets the job done. It's also nice to see that combined with what appears to be official Lego cloth. I can't really tell in this image. That's one of the difficult things about Lego cloth elements. Depending on the way they're kind of disguised throughout the rest of the mock, it's really hard to pick up the exact set that it came from. But either way, even if this isn't with official cloth, you could probably pretty easily recreate that with existing pieces. Whether or not it's easy to come by some of those cloth pieces is difficult. Thankfully, there's a new cloth piece coming out very soon in that Construction Batman set that I spoke about in the last video I posted. So, hey, a lot of opportunities for you to do something similar very, very soon. It's also nice to see some of these red ammo shells on the torso. Again, taking notes from how he looks in the game. But I really like the idea of seeing this on other mocks as well. It ties into the guns, which are obviously a bit of a trope for this character, but this nice pop of red I think really does look nice and just adds a little something extra to this character that otherwise has a pretty sort of dark and brooding color scheme. So yeah, little accessories like this I think always go a long way and kind of always look cool, so a nice inclusion. And could be a nice inclusion for other non-Overwatch characters you might be building too. There's also some brilliant action shots here too, and these have all been edited by DV MOCs. They did a really wonderful job with some of these edits, and they certainly make these mocks look pretty cool, so yeah, nice work. Jack Engineer 489 has built Ramatra. We were talking about cool mask designs before, and I think this is another great example of exactly that. So this is a modified cut Lego piece here, so brace yourselves if you're not a fan of that. But I believe this is a modified helmet of Stormer, and I think that was a really good call to do that here, because when you compare this to how it looks in the game, it really does look cool, and it looks very appropriate and very similar. So, if you want to go for that kind of hyper accuracy in that sense there, maybe modifying and cutting pieces is an avenue that you can take. But only if you've got a couple of that mask, certainly. You don't want to ruin the value of something. But if you've got a whole bunch of them lying around, why not? There's also another custom piece here to mimic the kind of crotch cloth waist thingamajig that he's got going on here. And that certainly gets the job done and, once again, matches that source material. So you know what? Sometimes custom stuff is always a good way to go. I also enjoy seeing some of these old tan hand pieces. These are the same kind of hand pieces that were used on the G1 Toa Mata, but here it's tan instead of red like we were seeing on Tahu there. Now, these aren't really that common to see these days because it's a bit of an older piece and not everyone has access to older pieces, but I always like seeing older pieces being used. I think this one's a really cool piece, and it's a perfect piece to be able to use to mimic this finger design that the original character has. So a good inclusion there, and a smart piece to use to best reflect the design that they're building. Now, I know this color scheme is obviously based off of the original character, but just in general, the idea of tan, bit of dark tan, black, and hints of silver and purple and a few other different colors there, that looks really nice. There's no reason you couldn't just replicate that exact same color scheme on a character that you could be building that isn't Overwatch related at all. But just seeing it here, I think it looks great. And just in general, I think that's a really good note too. Pay attention to character designs and color schemes of characters in video games and movies and things, because it's always a pretty good way to see what colors work and see if you could apply that to your own characters too. And now Makio the creator has built Brigitte. I think this is a nice example of the magic of editing. So we can see this Knight's Kingdom shield piece here has changed colors. This is how it originally looks, and then of course this is how it looks in these images. We can also see this flag appearing at the top of the mock here, once again, to look like how it does in the game. I think these are nice, these are, custom elements. You'd either have to paint these or make some unique cloth thing, and maybe you just don't want to do that. But you're good at Photoshop, you're good at editing. Maybe you could do that instead. Because now it looks a lot closer to the source material and you don't have to ruin any of your pieces. Could be a nice middle ground if you're not too fond of non-purist methods. I think the hair design on this mock is pretty interesting too. We can see that it's using one of the Iron Drone figures that came in the old Exoforce sets. Such a good theme. And yeah, so it looks like the arms and the legs have kind of been swapped and flipped around and all that sort of stuff. And then when you place it on the top of the head there, it makes for a pretty unique hair design that allows you to have multiple different strands of hair flowing on the back and the sides and things like that, and room for expansion with further pieces there to add even more to the hair. So it's a pretty unique way of doing it, and it's certainly a very different way of using one of those Exoforce figures. So very cool way of approaching a head design here. I briefly mentioned Knight's Kingdom before. We can see some Knight's Kingdom shin pieces, that sort of shin armor, being used on the lower legs of this mock. And I think that kind of mimics the shape of the source material well enough. And this mock does have that knight-like aesthetic, so it's very appropriate here, I think. Even though, maybe some of the coloration is a little bit different on the source material, I think that's still good enough to capture the essence of the of how they actually look. And sometimes the essence is just as good as being super highly detailed and accurate, because honestly, sometimes that's kind of boring to do. I find that when I build sometimes. I want to just kind of go my own way and build slightly differently, but if you're trying to be accurate, you can't always do that. So maybe it's worth finding a nice middle ground there, and I think this is the perfect middle ground. Those pieces work very well, in my opinion. On to the second last mock now. This is Zenyatta, and this is by Care Creations. There's a super cool part use on this mock. There is this interesting plastic element that's on the top of the head here to mimic the feather that we see on the in-game model. So this specific piece is the tongue from this Ninjago set, Firefang. It's one of those interesting pieces that I kind of just group under cloth, but it's, I think, on Bricklink classified as like a plastic element, which is always a difficult thing to say because all Lego pieces are made of plastic. But you know what I mean. It's that sort of weird material. Still, this was the perfect piece to use to mimic that feather design and get the same kind of height and everything. Love how that looks. I especially love seeing obscure pieces being used as well. I don't know if that's a piece that everyone would be super familiar with because it really only appeared in that set. And I guess it's just one of those pieces you can kind of forget about, So always good to see strange stuff being used on mocks. One of my favorite things to see. I also like seeing these gold rings on the hands. Again, it matches the source material, but I think it also just kind of looks cool. And it's also nice to see a bunch of trans orange pieces being used all throughout this mock here, once again, to match the way that they look in the game. And a lot of, Bionicle G2 sets came with a lot of different trans pieces. So if you're looking to do something similar, definitely take a look at some of those G2 sets. Or if you've already got some in your collection, pay attention to some of those pieces, because thankfully we were blessed with a whole bunch of those. So it makes doing something like this a lot more easy. But all in all, great mock. And finally, the man who edited all these pictures, it's DVMocs with their mock, Mercy. So we can see what appears to be a custom cloth element being used on the waist cloth on Mercy here. At first, I thought it was a different piece that came on the VW campervan set. This is what it looks like on Bricklink here. This is used on that sort of top part of the VW campervan. And it doesn't look like it is because, the official piece has all those sort of holes along the edges there. But hey, if you wanted to build a purist version that doesn't use any kind of custom cloth elements, maybe you could use that piece instead. Or if you're not building Mercy at all, why not use this piece for some sort of interesting waist, cloak, cape, cloth? What do you even call that? A waist cloak? I don't even know. I don't know what it's called, but it looks cool. And you could do the same if you have that piece lying around in your collection. I love the way that they've used some of these sword pieces to mimic the wings on Mercy. I think that really is one of the best pieces you could use to do that. They did say in the little document they sent me that these wing pieces come from a company called Weebricks because they're in an unofficial color. Of course, these pieces do exist, but not in that color specifically. So, hey, there's a good rise in bootleg non-official pieces these days in construction mocks, which I enjoy. I always like seeing that sort of stuff because, like you can see here, it produces some great results. So there's no reason you can't do the same if you're looking for that extra bit of accuracy with your mock as well. But still, a great looking wing design, that's for sure. I think also the almost Pate Kitongu inspired face design on this mock is pretty much the best way that you can create a human face with Lego pieces, at least in my opinion. I think it looks awesome. And it's great to see the way that the hair has been done here. It's using this specific piece on the top of the head here. And there's a bunch of different bar connections all along the edge, which allows you to branch off and build all sorts of different strands of hair. So yeah, it's just kind of super clever and produces a brilliant end result. That hair looks phenomenal and very accurate as well. Also think the staff has been built well. I love the little boomerang pieces scattered all throughout this mock. It's a very fun detail. And yeah, I think this mock has just captured the original look of Mercy very well. So that's it for the Overwatch collab. I hope you very much enjoyed seeing all of these awesome recreations of these awesome characters. And thank you very much to the spare parts community people for sending me all this stuff early so I could pre-record this episode and tee it up with them so that when their mocks went live, this episode also went live. That's super cool, and I'm always happy to do that if other people want to do the same with collabs that they might be dropping as well. It's a fun thing to do. So check the links in the description below for all the mocks that you saw today, and definitely check out some of the other stuff that these builders have done. I'm sure you'll enjoy seeing what they do. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Happy building, and bye for now.